Yeah, let's talk about Southwest Airlines. So there is a lawsuit involving Southwest Airlines. It has been going on for years. It does involve religion. We'll get to that. But they were back in court this week. Um, and a year ago, the reason they were back in court this week is because a year ago, a Trump appointed federal judge ordered lawyers for Southwest Airlines to attend 8 hours of religious liberty training from a right wing hate group, and they had to pay nearly $1 million to a Christian employee who claims she was fired because of her faith. And this week, Southwest lawyers were back in court saying, hey, judges, can you overturn that? And I don't remember if I talked about this on the show because it happened a while ago, but I want to talk about it now again, even if I talked about it before, because this case is bananas. All of this started in 2017, and it involves a flight attendant named Charlene Carter. And basically, she was fired by Southwest because she began posting anti abortion messages online, or at least that's what the articles about this case tend to say. She was fired for posting anti abortion things on Facebook, things like that. That's so minimizing what she actually did. What she actually did is she started DMing the head of her union. She's very anti-union, but she's part of it because that's how unions work. So she started DMing messages to the head of her union because the union head attended the Women's March in 2017. And she wrote things like, you truly are despicable in so many ways. I want to show you this from the lawsuit. Southwest Letter said that the March 7th, 2017 fact-finding meeting about all this stuff. Yeah. What did she send on Facebook Messenger? Southwest Letter also stated that when Carter posted the videos and pictures on Facebook, not only did she send these damning messages to the union president, she was identifiable as a Southwest Airlines employee and represented the company in a manner that is disparaging to the flight attendants as well as all employees. Southwest characterized her Facebook posts as highly offensive in nature, and the private messages sent to the union president were harassing and inappropriate. This woman was baby reindeering her union president, saying you're doing horrible things, you're murdering babies, things like that. Just never letting go of any of this. And then when she was posting publicly on her Facebook page, she was clearly wearing her uniform as her profile picture. So everyone knew, oh yeah, this is what the Southwest employee is saying about abortion. So she says she was fired for her Christian beliefs, as if this was religious persecution. Southwest is saying, no, we don't care what your religion is, but you're harassing the union president and you're posting this stuff while wearing your uniform and badge. You can't do that. It's kind of like a pastor who says oh, they are trying to restrict my free speech. I can't tell people how to vote. You are allowed to have political opinions that you share in a private capacity. If on your personal Facebook page, you want to have all the dumb opinions you want, you're allowed to do that. But when you step foot into the pulpit, you're not supposed to endorse a candidate. It's not hard to tell the difference. When you work for a company like Southwest, or when public school teachers have opinions, guess what? They do. If public school teachers have opinions, they're allowed to have them on their private Facebook pages. What they cannot do is say, yeah, I work for this school. And by the way, as a teacher, this is what I say. You're not supposed to post your teacher badge alongside your horrible ideas. So this is the dilemma, right? This lady says she was fired because of her religious beliefs. Southwest is like, no, you were fired because you broke all the rules and you're a crappy employee. So she also then files a grievance with the union, and the union gets an arbitrator to look into this. And guess what? That arbitrator says, yeah, we're siding with Southwest here. And I know there are problems with mediators and arbitrators who are hired by the company to do the fact-finding stuff. I'm not defending the practice necessarily, but if you look at the evidence, it's Southwest wasn't religiously discriminating against this woman. But after all this happens, this flight attendant decides to sue Southwest Airlines and her union. And here's what was shocking about this. Shortly after she files that lawsuit, this case gets in front of a jury, and the jury says she's right. This was religious discrimination. And I don't know what all the details were in that case, how you get from what she did to its religious discrimination, but that's what the jury decided. They said that Carter needed to get her job back. I will actually show you this. She needed to get her job back, that Southwest had to stop discriminating against people on the basis of religion, which again, they were not doing. And they said, oh, I'm sorry. I want to make sure I get this right. They said Carter needed to get her job back. Southwest has to stop discriminating against employees on the basis of religion. And the company has to notify its flight attendants of Title VII's prohibition on religious discrimination. But that wasn't all. Let me show you this. This is from an article from CBS News in 2022. A former Southwest flight attendant who was fired after sparring with her union president over abortion and other issues won a $5.1 million jury verdict against the air and the union. And if you look at the next paragraph, it said Southwest had to give her $4.15 million and the union had to give her nearly $1 million. So that's infuriating for all the reasons. And again, this is a jury verdict. They found in her favor. Southwest can appeal it, and they did. Okay, fine. Now, I will say, not long after that, a judge took that ruling and lowered the amount to $800,000. That is where we are at today. But here's the thing. This is kind of a side story, but I still think it's relevant, and I really want to talk about it, so we're going to talk about it. Southwest was supposed to tell its flight attendants that the company may not discriminate against them due to their religious beliefs and practices, because that's what the jury decided. And that future tense is important. Southwest had to tell people, we may not discriminate against you because of your religion. When Southwest sent out that memo to all of its employees, what it said was Southwest does not discriminate on the basis of religion. As in, we don't currently do that, but who knows what we're going to do in the future. And they also did not mention Title VII in their notice. So technically, did they follow the jury's instructions or the judge's instructions? Not really. So guess what that flight attendant does? She's very mad because they lowered her amount to $800,000. She says, hey, judge, they didn't do what you said. Go after them. And guess what judge this gets in front of? A Trump judge named Brantley Starr. He is the U.S. district judge that oversaw this case. And last August, he issued a ruling on this. And basically what he said, I want to show you this. This is from his ruling. It's hard to see how Southwest could have violated the notice requirement more. And then I'm going to go back to that for a second. He then says, I'm going to give you examples of what you did wrong. And I'm going to offer you some modified historical and movie anecdotes to prove my point. Modified historical and movie anecdotes. For the movie, he's going to cite Lord of the Rings. For historical, you know what he went with? The Bible. You know, history. Here's what he said. After God told Adam, you must not eat from the tree in the middle of the garden, imagine Adam telling God, I do not eat from the tree in the middle of the garden, while an apple core rests at his feet. Or when Gandalf bellows, you shall not pass, the Balrog muses, I do not pass, while strolling past Gandalf on the bridge of Khazad-dûm. I've never seen the movie. I don't know how that's pronounced. What is he doing? He's trying to be cute, and all he's doing is showing us he's like a Christian nationalist who has no business being in this job. But basically what this guy does, this judge, is he says, Southwest, I'm holding you in contempt. You didn't do the thing I told you to do. So then this judge writes out a new memo and he basically says, just copy paste this and send it to your employees. But because there was a chronic failure regarding your protecting religious freedom, he also said you have to go through religious freedom training. And look at this. This is incredible. This is what the judge said in that same ruling. Because Southwest's right to speak when implementing the court's injunction ensures a continued partnership in the future, and Southwest's speech and actions toward employees demonstrates a chronic failure, this stupid company doesn't get religious freedom, the court concludes that training on religious freedom for 3 lawyers at Southwest is the least restrictive means of achieving compliance with the court's order. The Alliance Defending Freedom has conducted such training in the past, and the court deems that appropriate here. And that last line is bananas. Because what he said is those lawyers need to learn a lesson. You know who should teach you a lesson? The most right-wing crazy group in the country. Why them? Seriously, why them? And he says later in his decision, don't worry, you don't have to pay the company for the training. Just pay one of their employees to come out to Dallas, where Southwest is headquartered, and just do it that way. See, minimal cost for all of you. But again, why Alliance Defending Freedom? They had nothing to do with this case. And what he said is ADF is one of many esteemed nonprofit organizations that are dedicated to preserving free speech and religious freedom. Nowhere in there did he explain why that group and no other group, because there are a lot of groups that have the bona fides. Did I say that right? Sorry, it's late. To do any of this, why them? There was a journalist, Chris Geidner, who wrote about this at the time, and he explained why ADF was wrong about why ADF was the wrong choice. ADF's lawyers, including Aaron Hawley, whose husband is Senator Josh Hawley, you remember Josh Hawley, the fist to the insurrectionist guy, are the ones currently litigating to end the availability of one abortion medication drug nationwide. They're the group behind the case about the woman who didn't want to make wedding cakes for same-sex couples. ADF is not an unbiased educational institution, nor does it pretend to be. The only relevant training its website discusses in the training section is a legal academy connecting like-minded attorneys in an effort to show lawyers how to effectively advocate for religious liberty, free speech, the sanctity of life, and family and marriage and family. So again, this Trump judge says Southwest lawyers are so bad at listening to what he wants them to do, he's going to send a right-wing Christian hate group, religious hate group, to run this training. Like, this is a group, by the way, that has argued sodomy should be illegal. They have spread lies about LGBTQ people supporting pedophilia. They have defended the forced sterilization of trans people in Europe. Like, bigotry is what they do. So what the hell are we doing here? And it was also a weird choice for that judge to make, because Charlene Carter, the flight attendant in the center of all this, she never said you need to get training from them, even if I'm sure she was on board with all of this. I don't even know what an ADF religious training session would look like, because there were no specifics offered. And their track record suggests they don't know what religious freedom is. Like, religious freedom is whatever lets conservative Christians do whatever they want, and whatever conservative Trump judges will let them get away with. So that was weird. So anyway, why are we talking about this now? I say 30 minutes later. Because earlier this week, lawyers for Southwest were in front of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, basically saying, you see what this judge did? Can you overturn that? Because it's ridiculous. And they argued that we shouldn't have to pay this woman anything because there was no religious persecution happening to begin with. This is a story from the Associated Press this week. Let me show you this. Southwest argues it broke no laws firing Carter because she violated company rules requiring civility in the workplace by sending hostile and graphic anti-abortion messages to the union leader, who was a fellow flight attendant. Like, yeah, this isn't religious discrimination. They go on to say, Her attorneys argue she made clear to management she sent the material because she was a Christian and an opponent of abortion. They say firing her violated federal law shielding employees from religious-based discrimination, and that Southwest and the union should be held liable for firing. The judge asked Carter's attorney whether any worker should be allowed to get away with harassing coworkers as long as it's cloaked in religious conduct or religious practice. And I love that question because it's saying, hey, so if you're Christian, are you saying you can break any rule you want and just say, I broke the rule because I'm Christian, and you think you should be able to get away with it? Like, that's a good question. I would like the answer to that because that's what they're doing now. She's a bad employee. Her response is, well, I'm a bad employee because I'm Christian and I love Jesus. And the thing is, in this argument they made in front of the Fifth Circuit this week, Southwest didn't even bring up Alliance Defending Freedom or the religious training. But the thinking is that if they are able to overturn the earlier ruling that says they religiously discriminated against this woman, well, then they're not going to have to go through the training anyway. It would be a moot point. So, like, the focus is on saying, hey, appellate court, just overturn that earlier decision. I did appreciate that the Freedom from Religion Foundation, they filed an amicus brief about all this stuff because they have a vested interest in this case. And their attorney, Sam Grover, he wrote that it's entirely unprecedented for a court to force attorneys to attend training by an ideological group. And he wrote this at the end of this right here. This court has the opportunity to keep Pandora's box firmly shut. The court should seize this opportunity. And I think that's an important point to make. And again, I hope the Fifth Circuit says this contempt finding is unsupported and that there's no basis for punishing Southwest for how they handled this. And I did find it interesting. The Alliance Defending Freedom, actually, they issued their own amicus brief saying, look, we don't care who wins or who loses, but we all want you all to know that we can totally conduct religious freedom trainings. Like, saying we've been really good in front of the Supreme Court. So, like, why would you choose anybody else, especially when it comes to First Amendment issues? And they never mention that the Supreme Court has a right-wing supermajority stacked with other Christian ideologues like themselves. And they also cited in their brief, look, all these Republican senators love us, so you should totally allow us to do this training. Like, yeah, you got all the crazy ones on your side. That's not a good argument to make. So the bottom line for now for Southwest is that this case is now in the hands of different judges. I hope they just reverse the earlier ruling. I hope they don't make Southwest pay this flight attendant for her awful behavior because she doesn't deserve it. And in the process, they would also say you don't have to take training sessions from some right-wing Christian hate group because she was never fired for her religious faith. She was fired for being bad at her job and breaking the rules. But professional victims like that, they can never admit that they're the problem. All right, I'm going to pause there for a bit. Let's take some questions and then I'll get back to stuff. Isn't the whole basis of not allowing churches to endorse political candidates, going back to the last story, or tell people how to vote because they're tax exempt and thus government subsidized? Yes, that is the basis for not allowing them to do it. Again, pastors have a right to, as private citizens, you can tell people how to vote. You can post on your personal Facebook page, I'm voting for whoever. It's a Republican. What you can't do is go in your pulpit on a Sunday morning and say, hey, all of you whose job it is, my job is to tell you all how not to go to hell. Well, I need you to vote for this candidate I like. You can't do that because now your church's tax exempt status could be at risk. But again, that's not free. That's not a violation of free speech. That's not censorship. That's just saying if you want to keep your nonprofit status, don't tell people how to vote. That's one of the rules. I wonder, were the text messages not something the jury could see? Bizarre verdict. I will fully admit, I do not know what the jury in this Southwest case saw. I don't know if they saw the Facebook messages. I don't know if they saw the private DMs to the union president, or if there was some argument that it was all okay because she was doing it in the name of faith and or something like that. I don't know what the jury's deliberations were, obviously. And again, I'm not even saying the jury got it wrong necessarily, but based on the facts that I have seen, it certainly seems weird. So maybe the appellate court will give it a second look and overturn it. I hope that's what they do because I don't like that the Trump judge took this in a different direction entirely. Imagine if a fundamentalist Muslim or someone repeatedly emailed and messaged the flight attendant telling her she's going to burn in hell or something worse for not covering her face. Yeah, I mean, this is the hallmark of Christian cases, alleged cases of religious discrimination. They will say, "You attacked me because of my religious faith," when if the shoe was on the other foot or the veil was on the other face, everyone knows exactly what the outcome would be. It would never be acceptable if a non Christian did the same shit. If a Muslim business owner said, "Oh, you're a Christian and you want to buy my products," you can't because it violates my faith for some reason. Everyone would be like, no, that's totally religious discrimination. But when a Christian does it, it's like, well, we have to protect that person at all costs. We're Alliance Defending Freedom, after all. The evangelical footprint Trump has left on the judiciary will be destructive for generations. Yup, he got to appoint more federal judges than any prior POTUS. We really need to expand the federal bench. Absolutely, we do, not just at appellate courts. We need to expand the Supreme Court. And again, this is my argument to any of you who are watching this who might be wishy washy about voting for Joe Biden. And you have good reason to be. I don't love the guy. But I'll tell you what, I'm sure as hell going to vote for him. And if you have a Senate race going on, please vote for the Democrat. Because if you care about any of this stuff, who gets to nominate Supreme Court judges? Joe Biden. Who gets to confirm those Supreme Court judges? Hopefully a Democratic majority. And if any of those things doesn't go that route, or, God forbid, Trump is reelected and Republicans take control of the Senate, it's only going to get worse because they tried it. They have a system like well-oiled machine now. They will only appoint like 14-year-old Christian fundamentalists to the bench from here on out. And I don't know. There are some Republican atheists out there who are like shitting all over Joe Biden. And they're like, I'm either going to vote for some third party or I'm going to vote for Trump for reasons. And it's like, okay, so why do you support putting Christians on the federal bench? Because that is what's going to happen. I do not get the selfish version, the selfish argument to be made that I'm not in love with Joe Biden. He doesn't do everything I want, so I'm not going to vote for him. Well, then you're ceding the ground to Republicans to just control the judiciary for generations to come, even more than they already have done. It's just selfish. It's stupid. Just vote for the Democrats for this issue, if no other one. My God, up and down the ballot, but certainly for president and the U.S. Senate. Do you think the USA will ever have an atheist president? I think the better question is, will we ever have an openly atheist president? Who knows about the non-openly part? The answer is possibly. I mean, the way it would happen is not that this person would be out and proud about being an atheist. It would just not be a thing they talk about. For example, Bernie Sanders, I forgot what religious label he goes by these days. It's not atheist, but he is someone who very much does not talk about his religious beliefs. But he had a fairly successful attempt at running for president a couple of times. You know what I mean? That's the sort of person, if you had a candidate who was popular enough, that's how you would get an openly atheist president, because it's just not an issue that comes up. If you support religious freedom and you support, whatever comes with that as far as the government goes, I don't know why you need to bring up your atheism.